Hey guys, what's up? So we're back. So we talked a little bit about what is Angular and what is all the stuff that you're gonna need in order to follow along with this tool tutorial. And so right now we're going to go ahead and start our first Angular application. All right, so we're still here. We're still in the in our Bash window here in our terminal, and we are in the folder that we want to go, right? So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna come over here back to the Angular IO. We're gonna see what is the command to actually run your first creation of an application, and it's basically ng new and whatever you want to name it. So we're gonna do something similar. We're gonna do ng new, and then we're gonna call this Angular task tracker. There you go. ng new Angular task tracker, and we're gonna hit enter, and it's gonna run. Okay, so it says, do you want to enforce stricter type checking? Let's not. And it says, would you like to add Angular routing? We will eventually, not right now. So hit no, and then CSS or Sass. So you could do CSS if you want to. It's a lot simpler, but Sass is the industry standard. Okay, any job you get nowadays in front end development, you're going to have to deal with Sass. Whether you're using a single page application framework or not, whether you're an Angular developer or not, you know, a lot of the stuff in React, for example, are going to be in Sass. Bootstrap itself and everything. So just deal with it. And if you don't know how to work with Sass, we're gonna cover it a little bit, but maybe I should do a tutorial that is a lot more directed towards Sass alone. Okay. All right. So hit enter on, just arrow down to Sass and hit enter, and it's gonna start creating it. All right. So that's gonna take a few minutes. Go ahead and grab a cup of coffee or tea. All right, so we have a bunch of good creates here, but we have an error. It says that it found Jasmine Core 3.6. Okay, so it found Jasmine Core 3.6, but it needs 3.8. All right, no problem. All right, so this is what we're gonna do then. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna see first what's in it, if it even downloaded anything at all inside this folder. All right, so it did download the folder right there, Angular Task Tracker. So let's cd into that, Angular Task Tracker, and now let's see what's inside there. Cool. So I have a package Json. All right. So I do have a build of some sort, but I don't have a node modules. That's because it didn't finish downloading. It didn't finish building that up. So so the package JSON is what declares what packages I am going to need. And if there's something in there wrong, like for example here it says that Jasmine Core is outdated in the CLI. So basically this is not your fault. It has nothing to do with your computer. It has nothing to do with what you did. You didn't do nothing wrong. What happened here is that the Angular CLI, this is Angular's fault actually. The Angular CLI, it has a package JSON declaration for Jasmine 3.6. It doesn't know that 3.8 is what's out there right now, and it needs to be updated to that instead. So yeah, so what we're gonna do is let's go ahead and actually open our code editor so that we can then work a little bit in this package JSON so we can do what we need to do. So how do you open this? It's right here from this Angular task tracker where you are. You're gonna, if you're using Visual Studio Code, you're gonna write code space dot, and you're gonna hit enter, and just like magic, it's gonna open code in that directory. So now you can go ahead and close this. You don't need that anymore, and we can bring this down. I don't need that. I'm just gonna get that out of the way. I'm gonna put this over here where you can see it, and I'm going to bring this over here for later. Okay. So excuse me while I get my stuff ready for you here. All right, cool. So alright, so if you see this little button down here, just open that. That's your integrated terminal inside your code, Visual Studio Code. So you're gonna need this all the time, a lot. So just leave it open for now. But what I want you to see, what I want you to pay attention to is going to be here. Let's just close this search here. Is going to be this package JSON. So I'm going to click on that package JSON and look at it. Let's just go over this a little bit before we actually start doing some work down here and finish up what we're doing. So the first thing you're going to see in your package JSON is going to be your name here, which is basically what we decide to name the application. Okay, this is kind of irrelevant. This is like whatever. And the version. So this actually, once this goes into production and things like that, you may want to actually update this stuff. And then like the first one is the version, the actual, when you do an entire new version of your software. And then the second one I think is if you adding a feature to that version, and then you become 1.1, 1.2 like that. And then the third one is a patch, so like a bug that you have to work out. Then it becomes 1.2.1, things like that. But to be honest, I don't really follow up with that. A lot of the applications that I've done, I never really, but some project managers like to keep up with it because that's how they end up doing releases. When they do a release of an application, they want to just keep up with it and keep track with it by saying version 1, version 2, like that. Alright, so the script right here, so the ng is your regular CLI call. So the ng is going to exist for whenever you need to create or generate a component or something like that. You're going to create it with ng and then generate, and then whatever it is you're generating, a component, a service, direct, or whatever, and then the actual name of the application, of the component, or the actual name of the service. Start, so if I put npm start, it's basically going to be the same thing as ng serve. Okay, it's going to run my application on the browser. ng build is going to create a build folder with my compiled code, and that build folder is what's going to go to your hosting company so that you can actually run this on a normal hosting environment. ng test is, like the word says, it is to test your application during development, according to some of the what is it, Karma or Jest or something like that. So yeah, let's not worry too much about the testing part. Linting, basically what it does, it looks through your code and makes sure that you have semicolons where they should be, makes sure that all your syntax is done neatly done and things like that. So just and then ng e2e is if you're going to run a backend with this, as in like a stack developer or something like that, like a full stack. So right now we are only going to work only with ng serve. That's all we're really going to do. And then here you're going to see the dependencies and the dev dependencies. As you can see, Angular uses a lot more dependencies than React does. If you're coming here for the first time, you're probably saying, oh wow, this is a lot. It kind of is. When we look at through here, we're going to see here that it says Jasmine Core, which is this one. I think this, right here, Jasmine Core is at 3.6, and we saw on the other screen that it was screaming about 3.6. It needed to be 3.8. So this is what I mean. These are your dependencies. These are your packages that you're going to be downloading when you download the Node modules folder. So right now it's trying to find this 3.6, but it doesn't exist. It's 3.8, what you want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to overwrite this, put 3.8 in there, and hit Control S or Command S for saving it, and that's saved. And now we're gonna go back over here, and this time we're not gonna run the ng new again, because that was for creating an application, and it's already applicated. It's already created. What we want to do is we want to actually make sure that the npm packages are downloaded. So we're gonna go ahead over here and we're gonna put npm update so that we can update the npm library according to what the change that we just made in here. And if everything runs right, it's going to create a npm modules and get this thing going. If I recall correctly, I had a Windows machine for a very long time, for a long time ago, for a little while. And if I remember correctly, I think this takes forever in a Windows machine. So you may want to just go ahead and run this and go hang out and then come back later. As you can see, if it was me, I have my guys back here, I will probably be over here just, messing around with it and while this is happening, because it takes a little bit for the Mac, and I know for Windows, because their processors are a little bit, unless you have a really powerful Windows machine, then yes. But I never did. I was always very cheap when it came to Windows machines. Alright, so good things happen here. As you can see, we have a no modules folder now. Okay, so that's good. And there are some deprecations in here that you can see, so I wouldn't worry too much about these. As long as you get at the end, what is it? Yeah, as long as you have a no modules package and you have pretty much everything, everything says warn, just warnings about some of the stuff that is in no modules. Because remember, no modules is not part of Angular. Node modules is part of Node, and basically it's a package library that is there. And if you open it, you can see it. Actually, you can see everything that is in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, now this probably seems like, oh my god, like this is a lot. How I'm gonna send all this to my hosting company, right? Well, remember, when you run ng build to create your build folder right here so that you can send this stuff, you're not gonna send this entire ng modules. In fact, there is a git ignore file right here that already has no modules explicitly named in there. So what this git ignore does is that it takes it out. It takes all of the stuff that is in here outside of your compiling, so that it doesn't end up in your ng build, and also so that it doesn't go through Git to your GitHub and it then floods your repository. So if you're going to be sharing this with another developer, when you send it to GitHub, that other developer is going to pull your application, but it's not going to pull the no modules or the dist folder or any other stuff here. He's going to have to run npm install in order to run his own node modules. His own node modules and your node modules are going to be exactly the same, because they're coming from node. So what's happening here, what you're seeing here, is basically your application here letting you know that, hey, npm has a bunch of deprecated stuff that they're not going to use anymore. Eventually they'll get rid of it, or they'll make a new one for it. Okay, so just don't worry too much about this part. Alright, so now it's time to actually run our application. So if we keep going down here, you're gonna see then that you have something here called ng-serve and then / open. Not exactly sure what that / oh, okay, I know what that / open is. The / open basically makes sure that that it opens the window for you, the browser, your main browser. Without it, you're only gonna get basically a compile that is going to say, okay, it's compiled, let's run, but then you're going to have to go to a window and type localhost 4200 blah, 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 all that. But so I like to do it this way with it open, okay, or like this, like it says just O is fine. That way it opens the browser for me. So it's going to be ng-serve /o, and watch it pop open. Angular is a little slow. I always hated that about them. I always hated that about their compiler. Their compiler is so slow. As the application gets bigger, it gets way slower. Alright, so as you can see, it compiled, right? You can see that it ran through all of these files right here, and it basically made what this, like a built chunk, and run it all through it, and then it's going to be in your browser on localhost 4200. But because we used -o, it basically, let me close this, it basically opened it right here, localhost 4200. So here's our application, and it's already ran. Now when it opens the application, it actually opens it in the CLI main window, which has a lot of good stuff in there. Unfortunately, we're gonna take all this out and we're gonna get rid of all of this, but no worries, because we're gonna do this so many times that we're gonna learn it by heart. And it's basically gonna be excuse me, this ng generate etc, ng generate service name, ng's generate component name, ng generate directive name. We're gonna be running this ng generate so many times, you're gonna learn it by heart, so don't worry too much about losing that information. All right, so let's bring this down a little bit. Close those files, and let's see what we got going on here. So if I open my src folder here, which is our source folder, you're gonna see that you have a few things in here. You're gonna have your index HTML, which is, you know, what the browser HTML, because everything has to run through the browser, right? And everything's gonna run through an HTML file in order for it to run in the browser. So if you look at it, you're gonna have some information up here, including, you know, a regular head tag, like every website, with the doc type declaration, all of that stuff, and the language. If you are in another part of the world, maybe you want to put another type of descriptor in here. But one thing that is kind of different from other HTML files is this base href here. Basically all that is doing, this is an Angular thing, and basically what Angular needs to be, it needs this meta tag to be declared as to what is going to be the start of the root, whether, you know, it's going to be a slash or whatever, and the industry standard is a slash. For React and other application frameworks out there, they already kind of like, it's a given to them, so they kind of wired it in already, and they already included it in their code. Angular didn't, so just have that there. But it's already done for you, so you don't have to add this, okay? We're just going over it. And then there's this right here called app root, okay? This doesn't look like an HTML tag to you, but the reason why it doesn't look like a normal HTML tag is because it's not an HTML regular HTML component. Is actually an Angular component that was already created. And when you create an Angular component, there is a selector that you can name it whatever you want, and then you use it here. Say for example, you create a component called cool stuff, right? You create your component, you call it cool stuff, and then you can come to anywhere and then just put cool stuff like that, and it will work, right? So basically your components become HTML components, and you can name them whatever you want to name them through the selector, okay? So we're not gonna do that, obviously. We're gonna leave it there. But basically what this does is basically it's going to act like an injector. And remember when we were talking about what we're talking about here, about this right here, this white part here is your app root. And then this right here is what is going to go inside that app root. So this is that white part right here, and everything else is just going to be, you know, the wrapper of your website. All right, so the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be your styles Sass file. This is where you're going to put your CSS code in there, but in Sass format, so that way you can, you know, style your application and it doesn't look like black and white. Don't worry about the tests. Right now, we're not gonna worry too much about this. All right, so we're done with that, and now we're gonna open our app right here. So your app is basically where your main application component, right? So this is your first component that is already created. And if you look at all this stuff here, if you look at the HTML, this right here is all the stuff that you have here. But before we do anything in there, I want you to look at the the app component TS. Remember the app root that we were talking about just a second earlier? This guy here, and I said that it was a component. Well, here it is. This is the component. So if I name this here app root, app rooty, and I hit send, save it, it obviously is going to break the application because it doesn't exist. It has to be created then in here so that it knows that it was renamed. So it's basically this right here is how you create a component so that you can use it as an HTML thing. So let's just bring that back, and obviously we gotta bring this back, and it recompiles. All right, good. Now this is the main structure of a component in Angular. Okay, first you have to declare up on the top to import the component itself, the component selector in here, decorator, actually the component decorator, so from Angular core, so that you can use it in here. And then the decorator, what it does is basically it declares the files that this component is going to contain, including some stuff that is not showing right now. Like for example, if you had any kind of services or providers, things like that, you're gonna also add them in here. But for right now, the main ones that you're going to need is going to be first selector. Like, what are you going to name this component? Well, it's not what you're going to name it in the file. It's what you're going to name it so that you can use it later. And in this case, it's going to be app root. Me, I like to get rid of this app stuff. I like this better. So I come over here and I'm going to get rid of that. So, but that's just me. You don't have to do that. And then now here it's going to say my HTML file that this component is going to use is going to be at this address right here. It's going to be in its own folder. That's what it has, this thing here in its own folder, and it's going to be called app component HTML, which is this guy here. Okay, we'll get there in a second. And then there is the style URLs, which basically says which file you're going to use, so you can add all your styling in it, and it's going to be app component. So if we have this, let's just keep this open, it's already open. If we have this, then why do we need this? Okay, well, this styles is basically your global styling. Okay, while this guy is your styling for that particular component only. So if there's anything that you're going to add to this component that you're going to eventually need somewhere else, you may want to add it there. That way, when you send the entire component to another page or whatever, it comes with its own CSS. However, with that said, I'm not a big fan of separating Sass. Okay, I'm a fan of keeping all of my Sass together, especially since we're not going to be using a lot of custom Sass, because you're going to be using a lot of the Sass you're going to be using is going to come from its own library, from the UI library you're going to be using, whether it's going to be Bootstrap or Material UI or anything like that, UI kit. You can just use the library from them, and it already comes with all the styling, and then all you have to do is just basically just tweak it around a little bit. So because of that, I don't like to actually have a Sass folder for every component. So I basically just come over here and I get rid of that, don't need it, hit enter, and then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna get rid of it as well, don't need it. And as you can see, it didn't break it. Why didn't it break? Because I don't really need styles. I have this right here. I can still do it in there. This is the global style. See, whatever I do here, it's gonna do it there. Watch. If I put, for example, the body, and I make the body's background red, and I hit enter, it's going to make my background red. So it works. The style, the global style sheet will work. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of here, put it back, get back to our component. So now, and then, oh, okay, so we're not done. And then finally, the last step is going to be down here, which is going to be your actual class. All right, actually, I apologize for the little skip that you just saw. my recorder just crashed and I had to basically just pick up from where I left off. But anyway, we were here on the class here, right? So so what I wanted to say was this last section here, which is your class component, this is where your actual code is going to go, your logical component, the programming part of it. So like for example, say for example I wanted to add like a console log. I just want to console log a message. Okay, I can just put it here. So like console log, and I'm going to hello. Okay, so I can just put it there. You can see that there is already a declaration expected issue here. There's already going to be a problem. It's going to run very well. It's not going to run very well. I will have to add it to my actual component. Now, if you notice, there's something in here already screaming. It's like, well, if it goes in the app component, then why isn't it just showing up in here? Okay, well, this is not just going to run by itself. It needs a function for it to run. So say for example we create a function. Let's just call it function. That's not called function. That's not right. Let's call it hello function. Let's call it hello function. Yep, let's call it hello function. Hell function. How about that? Let's call it hello function, and let's then call this console log in there. Alright, so now if we go ahead and hit center, so let's look over here, wait for it to refresh and inspect that and go to our console, and then we expect it to run there, but it's not running. So why is it not running? So the reason why is because though this is correct, since in the syntax form is, syntactically, if that's even a word, is correct, you're not declaring when this is going to run, when this hello function is going to run. Now, if this was on an on-click event, then yes, it would have run as soon as I clicked anything in here. So like I could create an on-click event. I can then call this, for example, this hello function in my HTML in here and attach it to any type of button or something in there, right? So let's just go ahead. Let's do this. Let's just close this on the HTML. Let's delete this and let's get rid of this tile as well, and let's get rid of the toolbar. We don't need that toolbar. And then we're basically going to get rid of all of this stuff inside here, all of these containers, not the content, leave that there. I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff, the footer too, yep, this SVG, all of this stuff. And we're just gonna leave that and then take this comments as well. So this is all we're gonna leave, that content right there. And then in there, we're just gonna put a regular H1. Oops, I have my caps lock. Okay, regular H1, hello from app. It's gonna hit center, enter, and it's going to just take all this off because we basically deleted everything in the HTML. So this is going to rerun and it's just gonna say hello from app. There we go. And then we're gonna create a button. Let's call it button. And that button is going to say click me, but we're going to put a click event in there. Okay, and the click events are in Angular. The syntax is going to be like this, and then it's going to be whatever we named it. So hello function, just copy that and put that on there, right? Hit enter, there you go, there's click me, and now if I click on it, it says hello. So it ran. Okay, so this is what I mean by having your information here, your logical information in here. So if this was going to be one plus 1, and you guessed it, once I click here, this will say 2, right? Because it calculated this. So this is basically how a component works, and that's how the component also talks to the HTML that is working with it. All right, so this has been also a pretty long lesson to get you started with, you know, the main. Oh, one thing before I leave, because I don't want to talk about this in the next video and take time from the next video, is going to be this app module right here. This app module right here is basically the one that is going to have all declarations of all your components. As you start generating more components and adding more components to your application, this list is going to grow, and they're all going to be declared here. There isn't really a whole lot that you're going to be doing in here, but just but there will be some. And lastly is going to be the Angular JSON. So this Angular JSON right here is a lot like the package JSON, only for package JSON is what declares all the dependencies for Node, and this Angular JSON is what declares all of the dependencies for Angular. So if you're going to depend on some type of UI library SaaS like Bootstrap or something like that, you're going to be adding it in here. Same thing with the scripts, the JavaScripts. If there is a JavaScript that you're going to bring in from another library, you're going to put it in there. And what it's going to do is, when the compiler runs, it's going to look at all the stuff that is in here and package it all together into, you know, Webpack. It's going to Webpack it together so that you can use it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about this. There's a lot more to talk about this, but I don't really think it's that important right now, so I'm just going to leave it like that. And like I said, this has been a very long video, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.